I came home on a Thursday evening still wearing my work badge from the plant. Forgot to pull it off in the parking lot like I do at least twice a week. My name is Ray Kowalski. I'm 52 years old and I run night operations for a distribution center on the west side of Columbus. Been doing it for 11 years. I know every conveyor belt, every dock door, every crew member's name, and which ones show up hungover on Mondays. I know my job the way some men know their wives. Turns out, I didn't know my wife nearly as well as I thought. I had a paper bag of takeout in my hand. Lime rice from the Thai place on Hendricks. The one Donna always said was the only restaurant in a 5-mile radius worth driving to. I set it on the counter, called out that I was home, and reached for the hook by the door where I hang my jacket. That's when I heard her. Not the voice she uses with me. The other one. The faster one, a little sharp around the edges. The one she reserves for her friends when she's in the mood to perform. I've heard it before, through walls, through car windows, in the next room at parties when she thinks I'm out of earshot. It's the voice she uses when she's got an audience and something to prove. Please, she said, and she laughed the kind of laugh that's more about landing a line than anything actually being funny. I'm not obligated to sleep with him. My hand stopped in midair, with my jacket half off my shoulder. I didn't move. I stood there in the shadow of the hallway, where the tile turns to carpet, and I just listened, because something in me already knew that whatever came next was going to matter. It's been, 3 weeks, she continued. I could hear the couch cushions squeak as she shifted around. He acts like it's a bill that's due, like he pays the mortgage so he's entitled to my body. Men are exhausting. I could see her from where I stood, bare feet tucked under her on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, a glass of red wine balanced on the armrest, like gravity had agreed to give her a pass. The TV was on mute with captions crawling across the screen. She wasn't watching it. She was entirely focused on landing her next line and waiting for whatever sound of approval would come back through the phone. A gasp, a giggle. You're so right. Her friend said something I couldn't catch. Donna answered louder, like she'd decided the whole neighborhood might as well hear. No, I don't feel bad about it. He's boring, Pam. I come home and he's got spreadsheets open or he's reorganizing the garage like it's some kind of religion. I'm 31 in my head and I'm married to a man who acts like he's already retired. I'm 52. My back still handles 12-hour shifts on a warehouse floor. My mind runs 3 crews simultaneously without dropping a pallet count. My hands built every shelf in that garage and put them into studs, not just drywall. But sure, boring. Fine. I was half a step from walking into that living room and asking her exactly who she thought she was describing. But I didn't. Something steadier in me said to let her finish. If I walked in now, I'd just become the new story. The one about how I overreacted, how I can't take a joke, how I made everything about me. So I kept my breathing quiet, and I let the tape run. Yeah, he tried the whole cuddling thing last night, she said, dropping into a tone that was somewhere between exasperated and theatrical. I told him I was tired. He asked if we could plan something for the weekend. Plan something. Like desire is a calendar invite. Another laugh. He'll get over it. He always does. I could taste the lime from the takeout bag, even though I hadn't opened it yet. The AC kicked up a gear. The vent above the hallway door fluttered. She kept going, comfortable and unhurried, curled into the safety of a friend who was going to nod along, regardless of whether any of it was true. And he's so needy lately, she added, like I'm his emotional support human. If I say no, he gets quiet, and then I'm supposed to feel like the bad guy. I'm not doing that dance. Quiet isn't punishment. Quiet is where I process things, where I figure out what's actually wrong with the system before I start pulling wires. Her friend said something again, and Donna's voice dropped just enough that I had to ease a half step closer to the doorway, toes on the seam where tile meets carpet. Look, she said, I'm not going to be guilted into anything. I don't owe him intimacy. I don't owe him anything. Honestly, him paying a couple of bills isn't doing me some kind of favor. That's the bare minimum. A couple of bills. The mortgage, the insurance, the second car she drives twice a month. The streaming services she browses at midnight. The water heater I replaced last February without saying a word about it. Bare minimum. It's strange what you notice when the floor drops out from under you. The way she swirled the wine without looking at the glass. The way the lamp we bought at a garage sale 2 summers ago threw a yellow ring on the ceiling. The neighbor's dog barked twice and stopped, like even he wanted to hear how this ended. Anyway, she said, her voice brightening like she'd moved on to a better topic. We're doing girls' night tomorrow, and I'm not canceling it just because he wants to have some big talk. I swear he schedules feelings. Who does that? I slid my jacket the rest of the way off and hung it up carefully, moving slow so the hardware didn't rattle. I wanted the unfiltered version. I wanted her words without the smile she puts on when she remembers I'm in the room, without the, I didn't mean it like that. Her friend must have asked if I was home. Donna laughed. He's probably stuck in traffic or reorganizing his soul in the driveway. If he were here, he'd try to make it into some kind of constructive conversation. I can't do therapy with a man who can't pick a restaurant without a pros and cons list. I stood there until my shoulders finally loosened. Then I stepped back into the kitchen and twisted the paper bag open deliberately, letting it make noise. The living room went quiet for a beat. Then I heard the soft clink of glass as she set it down, and her voice shifted into the warm, careful register she uses when she's performing kindness. Hey, babe, she called out. You home? I didn't answer right away. I put the rice into a bowl, set a fork next to it, and took the first bite standing at the counter because sitting down felt too settled, too normal, like none of it had happened. When I spoke, my voice came out steadier than I expected. Yeah, traffic was fine. She came to the edge of the kitchen doorway but didn't cross in. She leaned against the frame with her phone still glowing in her hand, face open and careful. The look you wear when you're not entirely sure what the other person might have heard. You grab something? She asked, eyes going to the bag. Lime rice. From the place you like. She smiled. Small, neat. The kind that plays well in front of people. Thanks. Then she drifted back to the couch and turned the TV volume up just enough to build a wall between us. The call was over. The performance was back on. I ate slowly. Didn't taste much. Washed my bowl and put it on the rack with the others. Upstairs, I stood at the foot of our bed and looked at it like it belonged to two people I used to know. The phone conversation played back in my head, but it didn't sting the way I expected. What I felt was something quieter and more final than pain. She had rewritten the entire marriage in her own head and was telling the version she preferred. In her story, I was a needy accountant of affection, filing invoices and expecting payment. In mine, I was a man who had been faithful and present and maybe too patient, and who was now suddenly very awake. I didn't sleep much. I thought about the mortgage auto draft that hits on the first. I thought about the set of keys on the hook by the door. I thought about every filter I'd changed, every tire I'd rotated, the deadbolt I'd fixed last January when it stuck in the cold. Obligations, apparently. The bare minimum. It's something. The way a single sentence can change the temperature of a room you're not even standing in anymore. I'm not obligated. Clean and final in her mouth, like she'd been practicing it. Lying there in the dark, I understood that I didn't need to argue with it. I just needed to understand what it meant for me. If she wasn't obligated to the marriage in its most basic form, then I wasn't obligated to keep being the pack mule, the buffer, the bank. The math was simple. The hard part was staying calm long enough to follow through. Around midnight, I got up and stood at the window watching the empty street. A cat moved along the curb, completely unbothered by the world. Somewhere down the block, a car door shut and someone laughed. I let my hands rest on the windowsill until the tightness in my chest loosened into something I could work with. Then I made the first decision that felt genuinely like mine in a long time. I wasn't going to confront a performance with a performance. I'd let her keep the story she liked telling. Meanwhile, I'd start writing a different one, with actions, not speeches. The way a man turns a valve and reroutes the line until the system tells the truth again. I turned off the light and lay back down, eyes open, mind surprisingly clear. She woke late the next morning, cheerful in that brittle way that means the cheers for someone else's benefit, humming while she made coffee, scrolling with her free hand, pausing at the sink to photograph the foam on her cup, like it was an achievement. When she glanced up and saw me at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the humming stopped like I'd hit a switch. You're awfully quiet, she said, testing the water. Why wouldn't I be? I answered, eyes still on the screen. Silence used to make me uncomfortable. Now, it felt like insulation. I finished my notes for the night shift, closed the laptop, rinsed my mug, and drove to the plant. The sky over I-70 was a clean, flat blue that made me think of a fresh whiteboard. That's how the next week felt. Blank. Available. Waiting for someone to write the new rules in thick marker. She wrote her rules first. They were simple. Push, watch, push again. She started staying out later and calling it girl time, leaning on the phrase like it could stop the clock from matching. She came home past midnight once, perfume too strong, shoes in her hand, whispering to a house that hadn't asked for quiet. Another night she parked on the street instead of the driveway and sat in the car for 15 minutes, lit up by the blue square of her phone, laughing at something only the glass could hear. When she was home, she threaded little cuts into ordinary moments. You always make everything a project, when I asked which weekend she wanted to visit her sister. Maybe if you weren't so predictable, muttered while passing behind me on her way to the fridge. I'm not your therapist, when I suggested we try a day with no phones. Each line was small enough to be deniable and sharp enough to leave a mark. I let them land and disappear. The neighbor's dog barked every afternoon at the mail truck. I started timing the intervals out of habit. 37 seconds to the corner, 18 back. My mind likes patterns. The pattern at home was now obvious. Contempt when she felt safe, charm when she felt watched, indifference when neither worked. The night after the midnight arrival, she asked if I wanted to split a pizza and watch something. I said no thanks. I'd eaten at the plant. It was true. It also placed my appetite outside her orbit. She shrugged and ordered anyway, ate 2 slices on the couch, and left the box open like a flag. I closed it, put it in the fridge, and went upstairs. I did speak once, because a man should confirm what he already suspects before he acts on it. She was at the sink, rinsing that same wine glass that always seemed to find the best angle of light. "What's going on?" I asked from the doorway. "With what?" She didn't turn around. "Us." She set the glass upside down on the drying mat and kept her hands under the running water, like the answer might be hiding in the drain. "Nothing. You're just in a mood." "Is there someone else?" A small pause, the kind that measures the distance between what's true and what's smart to say. "No," she said, and finally looked over her shoulder. "Why would you even ask that?" "Because you're acting like you need an audience," I said, "and I'm not it." Her mouth tightened. "Maybe don't make everything about you." "I'm not," I said, and held her eyes for a beat. "That's the point." I left it there. I wasn't building a case for a courtroom. I was making sure she heard the tone, calm, finished. After that, my days felt cleaner. I did my job, ran the numbers, walked the warehouse during breaks to feel the hum of the conveyors, and came home to a version of the house that had fewer conversations and more facts. I started getting up earlier and taking a 20-minute drive before sunrise with coffee and whatever podcast I was into that week, because I needed to hear my own thoughts before the day started borrowing them. I moved my emergency contact from Donna to my brother Pete. Took 30 seconds. Changed nothing in the world and everything in me. She noticed the shift and tried on different masks to find one that still worked. One evening, she came downstairs in a dress she hadn't worn in months. The green one that used to make me forget what I'd been saying. She paused in the doorway where I could see her clearly and asked if the color looked good on her. It did. I said so, the same way I'd tell a coworker their presentation looked solid. Evenly. Useful. Her smile dropped about a millimeter. Another night she sat beside me on the couch and rested her hand on my leg, light as a coin. I let it sit there. I didn't move toward it or away. After a minute, she pulled back and announced she was meeting friends. The friends multiplied online. Stories went up, captions about choosing joy and protecting your energy, photos of crowded restaurant tables and tilted wine bottles, boomerangs of clinking glasses. In one of them, I could see the edge of our living room in the background, the lamp, that yellow ring on the ceiling. I felt nothing except a clearer sense of where things actually stood. She tried pity next. "I feel bad sometimes," she said one morning. unprompted, while I was lacing my boots. Like, you don't have enough fun. I'm content, I said. That's not the same as happy. I know the difference, I said, and tied the loop. On Thursday, she asked if I could Venmo her for a flight she wanted to book before the price jumped. I told her I'd already used my discretionary budget for the month. It wasn't a game. I actually had. She blinked, surprised not by the no, but by the complete absence of apology wrapped around it. Right, she said, okay. That evening, she posted a story about independence with a rocket emoji. I scrolled past it the way you step around a puddle on your way somewhere else. Her mother called on Friday, voice careful and searching. Is everything okay over there, Ray? Things are fine, I said. We're just giving each other a lot of independence right now. She sighed into the phone like she recognized the word but didn't like the taste of it. Well, she said, marriage is teamwork. I agree, I said, and let the silence after that make the rest of the point. By the weekend, the house felt like 2 hotel rooms, with a shared wall you could talk through if you wanted to. She spent Saturday out and came back with shopping bags, narrating nothing, performing nothing. I fixed a loose hinge on the pantry door because I like things that close right, not because anyone was going to notice. She watched me do it. You can't help yourself, can you? She said. Correct, I said. I prefer functional doors. That landed in the category she files under boring. She shook her head and went upstairs. A few minutes later, I caught a fragment of laughter floating down from the bathroom as she FaceTimed someone. No, he's fine. He's just being Ray. I stood at the bottom of the stairs and realized that used to sound like an insult. Now it sounded like a boundary. Sunday night, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and drew 2 columns the way I do at work when I'm troubleshooting a system problem. Left column, what I control. Right column, what I don't. The right column filled fast and then stopped. The left column grew in quiet, practical lines. My time, my attention, my money, my tone. I stared at both lists until the noise in my head flattened into a single sentence that felt like a plumb line dropping through the center of the room. I'm not confused. That's what all of it had done for me. It had pushed me into clarity. She could keep humming when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Keep testing for the edge like a swimmer towing the deep end. I'd found the edge. I was standing on it, balanced, ready to speak once and mean every word. The moment would come. When it did, I wouldn't be asking for anything. I'd be stating what I would and would not live with, in a voice quiet enough that she could hear the decision inside it. Sunday started clean. Sun through the blinds, the faint smell of last night's takeout, the kitchen clock ticking, the one that gains a minute every 2 months because it doesn't know any better. I brewed coffee, poured it into the heavy mug that doesn't tip, and sat down with a legal pad. 2 columns again, but this time not for troubleshooting, for terms. She came downstairs in an oversized sweatshirt, the kind that's supposed to look careless, hair in a bun that said, "Don't start anything." Phone already in her hand. She stopped when she saw the legal pad on the table, like paperwork had personally offended her. "What now?" she said. Not really a question. "Clarity," I said, and tapped the page with my pen. She rolled her eyes and opened the fridge. "You schedule feelings, cause, Ray. It's a little strange." I let that pass. I had promised myself I'd speak once, and that when I did, it would be with the kind of calm that makes forklifts stop moving on a warehouse floor. I drew a line under the headings and turned the pad so she could read it. Option A, I said. We rebuild. That means respect, not contempt. No more phone performances about our marriage to your friends. Weekly counseling for 3 months minimum. Phones away after 9. We plan time together on purpose. We treat intimacy like it means something, not like a bargaining chip. If you're in, you say it plainly and you act like it. Not a performance. Action. She closed the fridge without taking anything out of it. And option B? Separation. Finances split. No more shared cards. No more casual asks. One of us moves to a short-term place. We file. No drama. Just done. She laughed, short and bright, like a car door locking. You're being ridiculous. Clock starts now, I said, in 72 hours. She blinked like I'd switched to a different language. You can't give me a deadline for my life. You already gave me one, I said. You said you're not obligated. This is me agreeing with you. She leaned against the counter and crossed her arms. So what if I don't pick anything by Wednesday? You're just going to leave? I'm going to choose the option you've already been choosing for weeks, I said. I'm just doing it out loud. I picked up my phone and created a calendar event. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Title: Decision. The little colored block appeared on the screen neat and square. She watched me do it and smiled like she'd found the punchline. You're actually serious? Yes. She shook her head, amused and bored at the same time. You won't follow through. I didn't ask you to believe me, I said. I told you what happens next. She slid onto a stool and drummed her nails on the counter. And what happens between now and your big deadline? Boundaries, I said. I'm not your driver, your lender, or your buffer. I'll be fair. I won't be available. You want something, ask with respect, and with your own resources behind it. I'll do the same. That's so dramatic. It's simple, I said, and pushed the pad an inch closer. Read the list. She stared at me instead, waiting for heat that wasn't coming. So I gave her specifics, the way I do with new hires, so there's no confusion later. Finances are already being split, I said. Your phone plan moves to your name tomorrow. Auto pays for your subscriptions are coming off my card. I'll cover half the fixed bills through the end of the month. After that, we adjust to whichever option you choose. I'm in the guest room tonight. I won't show up to anything social as your prop anymore. If you want this marriage, say so and act like it. If you want independence, you've already got it. But I'm done paying for both. She laughed again, softer this time. You sound like an HR manual. I sound like a man who's finished asking, I said. She tapped her phone awake and started scrolling. The modern way to end a conversation you're losing. I stood up, rinsed my mug, and wiped the ring it left on the table with the heel of my hand. My body felt light and heavy at the same time, like the first step down a ladder when you've been on the roof too long and your legs have to remember how ground works. I went upstairs, pulled a duffel from the closet, and packed like I was leaving for a week-long work rotation. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, toiletries, a paperback I'd been meaning to finish for 2 months. By noon, I called the carrier and moved her line off my account. 10 minutes of automated menus, 5 minutes with a polite rep reading from a script, and it was done. I transferred my direct deposit from the joint account to my personal checking and scheduled a final half payment on the mortgage through August 31st. I took a photo of the legal pad with both options and texted it to Donna, because verbal conversations can be rewritten in memory, and images can't. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Then, a heart. Then, nothing. I made a sandwich and ate it standing at the counter. She drifted in and out of the kitchen, light on her feet, like she was testing whether the floor would give her away. Once she paused near me and let her shoulder brush mine. I went to the garage and tightened the bolts on the workbench out of habit. When I came back inside, the legal pad had been turned around to face me. Untouched. At 3, she dressed to go out. Same green dress. She stood in the doorway and looked me over. You're really doing the separate rooms thing? Already done, I said. Guest room's set. So we're roommates now. We're adults making choices, I said. You asked for no obligation, I heard you. She smiled, sweet, confident, like she was certain this was still a bluff. And you think a timer's going to change my mind? I think the timer's going to make your decision visible, I said. She picked up her keys and spun them on one finger. See you later. I'll be here, I said, and opened the back door to let some of the August heat in on purpose, just to feel the difference when the AC pushed back against it. She left, perfume trailing a sentence behind her that didn't quite land. The rest of the day moved like a straight line. I did laundry for the first time in 2 weeks, without sorting anyone else's colors into the load. I measured the pantry shelf I'd been meaning to replace. I set up the guest room with my alarm clock, the book, and the small lamp I like, because it throws light straight down instead of all over the place. At 6, I texted Donna's mother back. She'd asked if we were coming to dinner next weekend, with a polite, clear no. At 7, I drove to the hardware store and bought the wood for the shelf. At 8, I lay on the guest bed and read the same paragraph 5 times, because my mind kept checking the corners of the room and finding them square. When she came home after 10, She walked into the guest room without knocking. She looked around like she'd expected a stunt and found a plan instead. "You're really committing to this," she said. "I commit to things," I said. She waited for more. I didn't give it. Eventually she nodded, like she'd scored a point in a game I wasn't playing, and went to our bedroom. I turned off the lamp and let the dark settle. There's a particular quiet that follows a clean decision. Not peace exactly, more like clarity. I lay there and felt it moving through me the way cold water does when you're washing grease off your hands after a long shift. A sting, then a shine, then a surface you can finally grip. The kitchen clock ticked its false time. My phone on the nightstand showed the real one. The colored block on Wednesday sat there in the future, exactly where I'd put it. Monday didn't react to the deadline. It moved like any other Monday. Emails at 6:15, rollout checklist at 7, supervisors in the conference room by 8:30, conveyor belts humming like distant rain by noon. At home, Donna hummed again, brighter than she felt. The colored block on Wednesday at 7 p.m. sat inside my phone calm and square. I didn't bring it up. She pretended not to see it. The house adjusted around the pretense the way drywall flexes around a stud that isn't quite plumb. She stayed out that Monday night. Girls' night posted in white font over a boomerang of clinking glasses. Caption, "Choose joy." Comments, "Yes, queen," and "Love this for you," and a string of champagne emojis. I stood at the sink and rinsed my plate until the water ran clear and thought about the difference between joy and an alibi. When she came in close to midnight, she tripped over the threshold and laughed, soft and theatrical, performing for an audience that had already gone home. Tuesday started with a practical consequence. She texted from the salon, "Card declined?" I answered, "I moved subscriptions and extras off my card Sunday." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then a single okay, with a period that wished it were a door slamming. I brewed coffee and sent an email to the insurance agent to split the policies by Friday. Not a threat, just a tidy line item, the kind of thing that makes systems honest. At noon, her mother called again. "Ray, she says you're freezing her out." "I'm not freezing anything," I said. "I'm respecting her independence and my own." The silence on the other end felt like a hand searching for a railing in the dark. "Marriage is teamwork," she said. "It is," I said. "Right now, we're 2 people traveling in different directions. I'm just not pretending we're in the same car." I could hear a game show playing in the background at her house, a bell ringing for someone else's good luck. She sighed, told me to take care of myself, and hung up. At 3, the gym called Donna because her membership, the one that had been running on my autopay, had bounced. She took the call in the living room with just enough volume for me to be the audience. "No, I'll add a new card," she said, smiling through it like it was nothing. "No big deal." She made it sound effortless. Then she opened the banking app and stared at it long enough for the smile to start shaking at the edges. She didn't ask me for anything. That was new. The streaming login asked for payment. She texted me, "What happened to Netflix?" "Use your account," I wrote back. She replied with a screenshot of a sign-up page and the words, "So petty." I put my phone face down and went to tighten the pantry hinge I'd measured on Sunday. Some noises are worth fixing. Some aren't. That night she tried seduction the way someone tries a window that used to be unlocked. A closer dress. A hand at the back of my neck, casual and warm. A kiss that almost landed. "You're not obligated," I said. Same even tone I use for forklift safety briefings and end of shift numbers. I watched the sentence reach her, not as a jab, but as a mirror. She pulled back, eyes calculating something. The next hour she spent building an argument out of whatever she had lying around. "You're being cruel," she said. "I'm being clear. You're punishing me. I'm responding to what you told me you wanted. You're making me feel unsafe in my own home." Each claim landed where it fell and stayed there. Wednesday morning, the kitchen clock did its usual trick, 1 minute too fast, racing ahead because it doesn't know any better. The colored block in my phone didn't move. Neither did I. I answered emails, approved a supplier change, shifted money from the joint account to the mortgage and utilities with memo labels that would make sense to any auditor, whoever needed to look. She paced the length of the downstairs, heel, toe, opening drawers and closing them with more force than necessary, like she might find a different version of me in one of them. Around noon, one of her friends texted me, one of the quieter ones, Lori, who'd never laughed at the lines or added fuel to the fire. I don't agree with how she's handling this. You don't owe me a reply. I stared at the message until the urge to explain myself passed. Then I typed, "Thanks for the kindness," and left it there. Not everything needs a speech. By afternoon, the consequences had moved from financial to structural. Donna had scheduled a rideshare to take her somewhere. It canceled twice. Her car sat in the driveway with the battery I'd been meaning to replace since July when the heat started acting like a thief. She stood by the hood with her keys in her hand, eyes finding me through the kitchen window. I stepped outside, kept the distance of a neighbor. "Battery's done," I said. "So you're just not going to help me?" Her voice tried to sound merely curious. It sounded like a test. "I am helping," I said. "I'm telling you what's wrong. There's a parts store 4 blocks over. They'll swap it out while you wait. Or call the roadside service. Your policy's in your name now. Either way works." She looked at the driveway like it had personally let her down. "You used to just do it." "I used to do a lot of things you didn't notice," I said. She called the service and sat on the front steps while the August sun pushed everyone's patience toward the edge, and posted a photo of her legs with the caption, "Some days are like this." 47 likes in an hour. By late afternoon, her strategy shifted from charm to something closer to panic. She followed me from room to room with questions stacked on top of questions. "What exactly happens at 7 o'clock? Where are you sleeping tonight? Are you seeing someone?" The last one was dressed up like a throwaway. It wasn't. I answered what deserved answers. Guest room. Mortgage through the month. Not seeing anyone. That's not how I operate. I didn't rush to fill the silence after each answer. She filled it with guesses and half-formed stories that circled until they got dizzy. At 6:42, she sat down across from me at the kitchen table and tried a softer weapon. "I think we've both been a little dramatic," she said, her voice smooth and reasonable. "We should talk about a reset." The word reset floated between us like a balloon looking for a hand to grab it. I nodded once to acknowledge the sound it made and said nothing else. The clock ticked its fake time. My phone showed the real one. At 6:59, she reached across the table and touched the back of my hand. Her fingers were light, like a truce flag. "I'm not ready to decide," she said. "You can't force this." "I'm not forcing anything," I said. "I'm observing it." 7 o'clock arrived exactly on time. The colored block turned from future to present. I stood up and slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a list of accounts already separated, the date the utilities would split, a notice to the mortgage company outlining my payments through end of month, and the name of a counselor with an appointment open Friday at 4 if she wanted option A. Beneath that, another card, the first consultation date with a family law attorney if she preferred option B. Both were printed on paper. Both were real. Both were her choice. She stared at it like a stranger had left a package on our porch. "You actually did this," she said. "I told you what would happen," I said. This is me keeping my word. She tried one more angle. Mockery, the last refuge of someone who built the whole argument and then lost the blueprint. "You made a packet." She almost laughed. "Congratulations, Ray." "I made a plan," I said. "You can make one, too." She didn't ask for the lawyer's number. She slid the envelope back an inch with 2 fingers and smiled the way people smile when they're losing daylight and pretending they aren't. "I'll think about it," she said. "I'm not going to be rushed." "I'm not rushing you," I said. "The deadline was for my behavior, not yours. And I've met it." She pushed back from the table and stood. The performance found its next scene. She picked up her phone and typed something that made her lips curl at the corners. The house settled around the new gravity.